Welcome and thank you for joining today. We have an exciting topic that we want to share with everybody here today. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can manage transports with SAP directly from Jira, ServiceNow, and Azure DevOps. Why would you want to do this? Well, there's a few reasons. People that are using Solution Manager, including Charm, they probably know that Charm is going out of support in 2027. So on top of that, many companies are already using Jira, ServiceNow, or Azure DevOps to manage their changes for all their applications. And so it would be helpful if they could actually link those change tickets that they have in those, because normally they have to do that manually to link a transport with a change ticket. But we have the ability where you can actually manage transports directly from those other services, which will save time for everybody and makes it a much easier way to go. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us during this call, and we'd be happy to share more information about this topic. So what I'm going to do is quickly share my screen to give you an overview of who we are, but maybe I'll just launch right into it. So Core ALM's been in business for about 15 years now, and we started when our CEO and founder, Alabinat Batucci, left his position as the head of the ALM practice at SAP. And in that role, he was dealing with many customers. He saw that there was a lack of service providers in the marketplace that basically had the ability to support application lifecycle management tools and processes across their landscape for SAP, and decided to found Core ALM to do exactly that. So that started, and really it was about 2018 when we realized that many of our customers who run SAP also run other applications and use other tools, as I mentioned, like Jira, ServiceNow, Azure DevOps. And for those other applications, they wanted to be able to integrate those tools. So that's where we started from. We've been serving some of SAP's largest customers as we go through that. Many of those people are using our services and have been using our product for many years, putting large volumes through there. These are regulated companies, many of which have stringent controls, like certified environments that they need to maintain. From a services perspective, we cover all aspects of the application lifecycle management process. So whether it's planning, building, testing, release, or monitoring, we cover all aspects, and we work with tools, especially SAP tools, as well as other tools that we can offer services to cover. And of course, we work with SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager. The reason why we built our connectors is that in many cases, the SAP tools will suffice and are useful in managing application lifecycle management processes for SAP customers, but they also have other tools that they use. And so this leads to dual access, different types of applications that they need to maintain access to. And those tools are not connected, they don't communicate with each other. So that leads to duplication of effort, at least, and sometimes inconsistencies in the data and a lack of ability to fully automate the process. So that's where our connectors fit in. We have Cloud ALM connectors. Historically, we've had Solution Manager connectors, and now we're pleased that we can offer direct connectors, which is what we're going to be focused on today in today's presentation. So this is just a quick summary of the connectors that we do have, and we'd be happy to discuss any of those. We did some interesting webinars recently in the past couple of months on Tosca and some of the services provided by Test Automation, as well as Live Compare for change impact analysis. And so do go to our website if you want to go back and see any of those materials. Those recordings are available. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sajid, and I'm just going to give you control of the screen here. Hopefully that works for you.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it looks good. Just
Yeah, we'll switch to presentation mode.
perfect.
I hope it's good now.
Not yet. I see a pop up there. There we go. You're good.
Okay. So before we start with the demo, the live demo of the connector for the direct transport integration from Jira, ServiceNow, and ADO, we'll go through a few slides, which will give you a high-level overview about the features and benefits of the connector. And in the slides, we'll cover Jira, ServiceNow, and ADO. And in the live demo, we'll start with Jira, then ServiceNow, and depending on how much time do we have, we'll also try to cover ADO. So to start with, so we do have Charm and for the transport management in SAP. And so what our connector for direct transport integration from Jira, ServiceNow, and ADO does is, it is a direct integration from these third-party applications to the STMS of SAP. So for this connector to work, you do not need to have a solution manager system, or you don't have to do the Charm configuration in your landscape. So using this connector, you should be able to create, release, and import transport requests directly from Jira, ServiceNow, or ADO, whichever third-party application you want to use. And this also supports, like in Charm, the transport of copies. And so similar to Charm, so if you have a transport development progress and you want to test it in the quality system like you do in Charm, you can create transport of copies from the existing transport request without releasing it, and you can add additional tasks and create new transport of copies. And as additional functionalities, the advanced features in Charm, this connector also supports the cross-system object lock and downgrade protection. You also have additional features like coupling and decoupling. So you can, if you already have an existing transport request and if you want to couple it with an existing Jira issue, you can do that. And you can also remove a transport request from assigned Jira issue or a ServiceNow change request. You also have the mapping option, like in Charm, in a particular Jira issue status, if you want to create the transport request, and in another particular status, if you want to release the transport, and so on. So we also have the mapping option against the statuses in Jira and also in ServiceNow. Also, if you have multiple transports to be imported at the same time, we also have like a release, mass import of multiple transports also possible using the connector. And coming on to the deployment options, we have mainly two options for the deployment. One is a standalone mode, in which from the Jira, so here Jira is given as an example. From the third-party application of say Jira, it will be, the connector will be directly communicating to the development systems in your landscape. So if you have, say, example for ECC, BW, and PI systems, the connector, the Jira instance will be directly connecting to the development system of each of the landscape. So that's the standalone mode. Whereas we also have a centralized mode option, which is the recommended approach, wherein Jira will be directly communicating to a central NetWeaver instance, wherein the plugin will be, the connector will be deployed, and your development systems will be directly connected to this NetWeaver instance. So in this approach, your landscape, the development systems need not be connected to Jira, but all the connections will be routed through the central NetWeaver system. And when we deploy the connector on the Jira side, there is a plugin which we'll be providing to be deployed in your Jira instance. Once the plugin is deployed, you'll be seeing an additional tab called SAP Transport within your Jira issue layout. And this tab will be visible only when we have a particular Jira issue need to be linked to SAP Transport. So you have an additional field called link to SAP or SAP Transportable Change. Only when that particular custom field is selected, you'll be seeing this SAP transport tab. And within this SAP transport tab, there will be options to create the transport, couple a new transport. And once the transport is created, you will also be seeing the details of the particular transport within this tab. So you can see here an example. This is a transport request that got created, all the details related to that. And you also have additional options like create and import TOC, release TR, import TR, and so on. And once you click on the create TR, here is a pop-up, what all information you need to enter for the transport request creation. So you can enter the title and you can select the development systems. So all these development system details and the landscape you'll be adding as part of the initial deployment. And after the addition is done, you will be able to select the development systems or SAP systems added to the Jira. So Jira issue layout, and this is the status mapping option, which I mentioned about earlier. So you can do the mapping. So here in this particular example, the Jira project called TMS demo, and the issue type story is mapped to systems or ECC landscape, which is ECD. And in this example, when the Jira issue is set to status selected for development, you'll be able to see the option for creating a transport request. And when the issue is moved to in progress, you can change the set, you can create and import a TOC. And in testing status, you can release the TR successfully tested will allow the import into test, and authorized for production will import into, will give you the option to import into the production environment. So this is just an example based on your requirement and which all statuses you have in your Jira issue. You should be able to make changes to this mapping. So if you have any questions in the meantime, you can add that in the chat. We'll be able to answer the questions at the end of the demo. And we have seen this Jira layout, and similarly, as I mentioned, we have the connector for ServiceNow as well. And this is how the layout looks like if you have the ServiceNow plugin for direct TMS deployed in your ServiceNow instance. Here also, you'll be able to see SAP transport tab, which will be visible only when you enable this SAP change value to yes. So ServiceNow, similar to Jira, is being used across the organization for both SAP and non-SAP changes. So to select this as an SAP change, you need to set the value of this particular custom field to yes. At that point in time, you'll be able to see the SAP transport tab visible, within which you'll have the options like we have seen in Jira for creating the TR, creating tasks, and so on. And all the details of the transport request created will be visible under this particular tab. Similarly, in Azure DevOps also, this is Azure DevOps work item layout. You can see the SAP transport tab here and all the options for the creation and release and import of the TRs. And you'll be able to see the transport request details within this tab itself. So that's about on a high level. And now we'll go to the demo. You'll be able to see how it looks like in Jira and how the transport requests are created from Jira, ServiceNow, and DP. So this is our Jira instance, the demo instance, where we have this plugin deployed. So once we deploy the plugin, you'll be able to see under it under the app section. This is the transport management. Here you have different options or tabs. So in the connectivity tab, you'll be able to add your system landscapes in here. So we have multiple landscapes added. For example, if I take ECD, you can see all the details. There will be ECD development system, the quality system, and production system. And you should also be able to do the connection test from here. You also need to have a system user in the SAP system for the communication from Jira to SAP. And if you have multiple systems in the landscape, you should be able to add those based on how many systems you have in there. So if you also have a pre-production and quality assurance system, you should be able to add that in here. And once the landscapes are added, the next step is to define the mapping. Here you select the Jira project, and then you select what is the issue type to be mapped, and then select the landscape against which the Jira project needs to be mapped. So here we have mapped this Jira project issue type story against ECD landscape, and this is the mapping that we have. Once the issue is created and when the status is set to selected for development, you'll have the create transport request option. And for different statuses like in progress, we'll have the create and import TOC option, in testing, release TR, and so on. So at any point in time, you should be able to switch to edit mode and modify the options here. So you'll be able to see all the statuses and corresponding actions in the drop-down here. Just select the status and corresponding action and save. And then we also have the mass import option. For particular Jira projects, you'll be able to see the different issue types, and you can select multiple issues and corresponding transport requests based on any specific field. And here we also have the logs for all the calls from Jira to SAP. You'll be able to see all the actions, whether it's creation of transport, import of transport, or release of transport. All the status will be visible here. And in case of any failure, you'll be able to select and do the retry from here itself. So now what we'll do is we'll go to the project, we'll try to create a Jira story, and then we'll also create transport request from this particular story. So I'm going to create a story here. Just filling in only the mandatory fields. So this is the Jira story which just got created, and you see that the SAP Transport tab is not visible in here. So to make the tab visible, as I mentioned earlier, we have a custom field which is called SAP Transportable Change. So if you want to have this Jira story linked to an SAP Transport request, you need to set the SAP Transportable Change value to yes. Only then this will have the integration enabled. So I'll set this to yes. And after that, you should be able to see the SAP Transport tab appearing here. So I'll just refresh. And there you go. So now this value is set to yes, and you can see SAP Transport tab. And but within this SAP Transport tab, you are not able to see any of the options except refresh, because as per the mapping that we had, so open the mapping. So you'll have the create TR option only when the status is set to selected for development. So let's go here, and currently it's in backlog. We'll move to start development. And let's refresh. And then you have the options create TR and couple TR. So I'll click on create transport request. Give the title for the transport request and select the development system. So this is mapped to ECD landscape, and I'm selecting the development system and corresponding development client. And then you need to decide whether you want to create a customizing or a workbench request. And you can create both as well, like in Charm. So selected customizing request. And here you can select who's going to be the owner of the transport request. So you can directly do a lookup from here. So just search for the owner name. This will fetch the corresponding user details from SAP directly in real time. So selecting my ID here as owner. And if you want to add multiple tasks, you can do that as well. Here also we have the lookup option available. And add the task. And we are also providing a feature like manual steps to be done. So if you are going to implement an OSS node, for example, there could be some manual activities to be done before implementation of the OSS node, or if you import a transport request into a target system. So these are optional manual steps which you can mention if needed. For this, I'll just give it as execute before TR import, just making it up and save. And whenever you try importing of a particular transport request, for example, in a quality environment, you will be getting a pop-up to confirm the manual steps are complete. So all the mandatory fields required for creation of a transport request is populated now. And I'll click on create. So this will make a call to the central system, and from there will be a call made to the corresponding development system landscape, and a transport request will be created, and in real time the correct transport details will be sent back to Jira. So here you can see this is a transport request which is just got created, and all the details are in here. And also for each action from Jira to SAP, you will also be able to see in the comments from the integration user whether the transport request has been created and whether the import is done, or in case if there is an issue with the creation of the transport request or with any action, that information will also be available here. So we'll go back in here. This is the transport request, and let me open this in the SAP system. And here you go. So all the details which I mentioned, the owner, the task owner, the task type, and all the information is available. Now, once I select this, I'll have multiple options again to create an additional task. If I want to decouple this from Jira issue, and if I want to couple an additional transport, all those options are available. So once you also select this, you'll also be seeing the task number within this particular transport. If I click on create task, I can mention a task owner. I will look up, I'm adding another user as the owner here and create. And if the creation of task is successful, you should be able to see that in here, and all the task details is visible. Now there's additional task which got created, owner as Narayan. Let me come back here and refresh. You can see the additional task also got created here. And now moving further to release and import of the transport request. So if I go to in progress, it will create and import the transport of copy. So what I'll do is for the creation of transport of copy, we'll release the task. I will not include any objects in the interest of time, so I'll just leave it blank. And so here you don't see the create TOC option because we have the mapping in progress status. So we'll go and set the status to in progress. And if I refresh here, you should also be able to see the task status as released. So both the tasks are now released. And now if I refresh, the status got updated here. And when I select the transport request, you see that you don't have additional options to create options to create additional transport requests or tasks, because in here we only have the mapping against create and import TOC. So we'll select the transport request, select create and import TOC. And before the import of the TOC, as I mentioned earlier, we have a manual sub mentioned, execute a particular report. We just need to confirm that it is acknowledged. And this will also be included in the logging. So this will create a new transport of copy from this particular transport request. And if it's successful, you should also be able to see that in the comment section. So here, the transport of copy got created. This is the transport of copy, and it also got imported to the target environment. So let's go and check the transport of copy 459, and this is a TOC from the original transport request. And so if there was any objects in that original transport request, that also got added. Now we'll release the transport request from here itself when I move this to in testing status. You see the option release TR. So this is going to release the original transport request from the development environment. So the status is now released. Let's go back and check. So the original transport is now released, and let's import this into the test environment, and it is going to be, when you set this to successfully tested. So this is just a sample mapping. So based on whatever status you have in Jira, you can map multiple statuses or multiple actions against a particular status in Jira. So here you have the import TR option. Again, you get the confirmation to acknowledge that the prerequisites are completed. And you, so like when you import a transport request, so you also get the options like how you get in STMS. So I'll just leave it blank and click on import. So here import's done. You should be able to see here. So ECQ is the target environment and it got imported. Also in the comment section, you should be able to see the import status. So return code is 0 and import is done successfully. So let's go back to STMS and check the import history. And this is the transport request which just got imported. And this was a transport of copy which got created from here. And this was the one which imported previously. Again, once you move to authorize for production, you will also be seeing the import into production option. Here. Import TR. Acknowledge pre-steps and import. And for each system, the import status is shown in the import done box here. So ECP imported, ECQ also imported. And if you have the cross-system object lock or downgrade protection enabled, so currently we do not have that enabled in the system. And you'll also be able to see that whether CSOL check is green, DGP check is green. And in case of any error, that information will also be visible here. And you can see the detailed error in the comment section. Okay, and let's check in the ECP system whether the import is successful. And this is the transport request which got imported to the production environment. So that's how you do the mapping and creation of transport request and import of transport request from Jira. So for this, you need to have a service user on the Jira side, and also you need to have a system user on the SAP side. And this works in the same way in ServiceNow as well. So that's the demo that we have on the Jira side. We'll also go through ServiceNow next. Here we'll be using the change request in ServiceNow for the creation of transport request in SAP. And here our plugin for the direct TMS integration is certified and approved by ServiceNow, and you should be able to see that in the ServiceNow store and deploy it from there. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new change request. It's a bit slow, ServiceNow system. And similar to what we saw in Jira, there was a custom field called SAP transportable change. And in ServiceNow also, as I mentioned, ServiceNow's this change can be linked to SAP, or it can be treated as a non-SAP change request. And if you want to have a transport request created from this particular ServiceNow change, set this custom field value to yes, SAP change is to yes, and then you can see this additional tab is appearing here, SAP transport tab. If you set this to no, that transport tab won't be visible. So I'll make this an SAP change, and you can see the SAP transport tab, and then save. Here you have all the options. So here we didn't do any, so we just wanted to show all the options available. If you do the mapping against a particular status, you'll be able to only see that option. And you can see what all options we have available here. Create transport request. Create this additional military field. Okay, in SS status, we have only the create TR and create and import TOC options. Once you click on create TR, you get a similar pop-up like in Jira. And here also you will be able to add the landscape options, which I'll be showing in immediately. Here you can select the development environment in which you want to create the transport request. So I'll also select ECD here as well, and we'll create a customization request. And you can do the lookup for the owner, similar to what we did in Jira. So you'll get the owner details in the drop down, and also the tasks. Here also we have the manual step to be performed if needed before TR import and also after the TR import. And I'll leave those blank in the interest of time, and we'll just click on create transport request. And this is going to trigger a call to SAP, and the transport request will be created, and you'll also be able to see that immediately. Yeah. So this is a transport request which is code created, and the details are here. Let's go back and check in SAP. The details, customizing task and owner and everything is populated as per what we have given in here. Here also we have the options, as I mentioned earlier, create and import TOC. So here create and import TOC got failed. As I mentioned, in case if any action fails or if there is an error on the SAP side, you will be able to see that in the logs or in the notes section. So here you can see creation of transport of copies failed. There are unreleased tasks exist for the transport request. So I forgot to release the task, and because of that, the creation of TOC was not successful. So we'll go back and release the tasks, and then we'll trigger the creation and import of TOC again. And this time it should be successful. And if it's successful, you should be able to see that in the comment section, and the TOC details will also be visible. So here you can see the TOC creation is successful, and this is the TOC number. And also in the notes, you can see creation of TOC is successful, and it got imported into the target environment, which is the quality system ECQ. So let's go back and check the transport request. And this is the TOC from 461, which was the original transport request. So similar to what we have seen in Jira, we have the option to release and import the transport request from here as well. and the functionality remains exactly the same what we have in Jira. And within here, we have the mapping options. So the landscape wherein you can add new landscape here. You can display all the existing landscapes added. And you also have the mass import option. And you also have the status mapping options. It's taking a bit longer to load. But you should be able to see, select the drop-down for the corresponding change type and select the mapping from the drop-down here. So the UI is a bit distorted because of the performance. But this is how you do the mapping and creation of transport requests from ServiceNow. And now, with that said, we'll go to Azure DevOps. And here in Azure DevOps also, we have a plugin for the TMS Connect. So you can deploy this plugin, and similar to what we have seen in Jira and ServiceNow, you have the landscape details here, mapping, and mass import option, and logs. All the information are available here in Azure DevOps as well. The functionality remains exactly the same like what we have seen in Jira and ServiceNow. And in the layout, you will also be able to see SAP Transport tab, and you have all the actions options you saw in Jira and ServiceNow for creation and import of the transport request. And all the transport request details will be visible under this particular tab. And you'll also be able to see the transport of copies and task number within here. So that's all for today about the live demo. If you have any questions, you can add that in the chat, and we'll try to answer this.
Yes, I do have some questions. Sajid, thank you very much for that in-depth walkthrough. It's great to see how it works kind of on Jira and ServiceNow and Azure DevOps, all three having those full capabilities to manage transports directly. The question that came through, first question, it says, how long does it typically take to get the product installed, and what do I need to do?
Yeah, so actually the deployment of the product, it's actually easier. It takes a couple of days. So when you mention about the deployment, there are two sections. One is the deployment on the SAP side. As I showed in the slides, you have the centralized deployment option, wherein you can have the connector deployed into a central NetWeaver system. And on the Jira, if you're going for Jira, you need to deploy the plugin on the Jira side. So this deployment will be faster. And what we have seen with most of the customers is to have the connectivity established between the third-party system and SAP. So if the connectivity is in place, within a couple of days, we should be able to complete the deployment and configuration.
Okay, great. That's really impressive, the speed at which you can do that. The next question might be kind of related. It says, if I already have transports in my system, then what happens when the connector is installed?
Yeah, if you already have a transport request, and if you still want to manage that from Jira or from ServiceNow, we have the feature which I mentioned, which is a coupling of transport request option. You can create a new transport, you can create a new issue in Jira, or you can have an existing issue or an existing change in Jira or ServiceNow, and you can use the couple option. Once you click on the couple option, you can enter the transport request which is already created. And this will establish a link between the Jira issue and the corresponding transport request. And all the actions that we currently do will be applicable for the coupled transport request also. You should be able to release that and import in the target environment and so on.
That's great. I guess because we're linking to the same TMS system that they're already using for managing transports, then you just have to basically link up those tickets with those existing transports. There's no change required. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been a great overview for all of the folks on the call. In case you had to drop in and out during this, we know you have a busy schedule. We will be sending out the recording after, so you should be able to go back and just refer back to any of this. If you do want to reach out to us, the easiest way is to go to our website. That is corealm.com. And the fastest thing is just go to the top right-hand corner of your screen, click on the Talk to an Expert button, and fill out the form, and those forms come in, and we'll get back in touch. We can schedule time with you to answer any questions you may have. Please do check out our webinar page. If you go to corealm.com and then click on webinars, or go to corealm.com/resources, I'll put that QR code up on screen. Then you can find some of our past webinars and upcoming webinars that you can register for different topics. Yeah, we have lots of interesting topics. We just did 2 webinars jointly with Tricentis. It was a feature for some of our very large global, one of our customers that is using Tosca. They have 2 applications that are running from Tosca. They're using Live Compare, and they're using, 2 applications from Tricentis are using Live Compare, and they're using Tosca. Live Compare is for change impact analysis. It will help you to optimize the tests you're running to make sure that you are executing the right tests for those specific changes to validate that there's no impact coming in from those changes. And then Tosca will help you to automate those test cases so that you can actually quickly go through and validate that you haven't had any regression in your application. It all fits together with a transport management process. If you're using, some of these workflow tools like Jira, ServiceNow, or Charm, we can connect those things up as well so that you have a continuous end-to-end process. We like to think of the application lifecycle management process as holistic. But what I love about this is that it allows you to actually take those transport management capabilities that you have within SAP and link them into your existing sort of ticketing process. Thanks everyone for joining the call today. Really appreciate having you all here today. Thank you, Sajith, very much. And sorry for the troubles at the beginning of the call, but thanks for your patience and for sticking it out. Have a great rest of your day.